Hey, what's going on, boys? How you guys doing today? Welcome back to the Steam 2 video. And in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at another one of the active weapons. And so far, I think this one has to be my favorite one, besides the bow, of course. And it's the brand new Strand SMG, the Mirror Imago. And this thing has some really good perks. It's got some very interesting perk combinations, and some perks that I never even expected to have on a Strand weapon, like permeability. So, we're going to be talking about the perks today. What are some of the best ones and the ones that you should be looking for if you're looking for a god on this weapon. And at the end, we'll have a mini review where you talk about the things that I like, dislike, and everything else about the weapon. And with the mods this season, this thing is very deadly and very good in PvE. So hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video, and if you do, remember to leave a like and subscribe to the channel in case you guys are not ready to not miss any of these videos. And now let's start with the very first thing that we gotta talk about, which is how to actually get this weapon. And the easiest way to get these active weapons are going to be from the Court of Blades activity. That's mostly where I've been getting them. You could do them on normal, you could do it on depth. There's a glitch going on actually right now. I don't know if it's actually a glitch, but there's a method to essentially get more depth. So I'll also link that in the description in case you guys want to check that out. But that's definitely going to be the best place where you can get some of these new Act 2 weapons. Now this weapon comes with the Origin trait Wielding Vessel, meaning that every time that you do damage or defeat targets with this weapon, you'll gain stability, handling, and reload speed. All stats are pretty good for this weapon. Specifically the stability and the reload. The handling, not as much, but it's still nice to have. And now let's move on and let's actually take a look at the perks that we have on this weapon, because like I said, we have some pretty interesting ones and some pretty good ones, especially for an SMG like this one. So we're not going to be taking a look at every single perk, but we're essentially going to be taking a look at the best ones, because I know that's what you guys are looking for. So let's not waste any time, let's get into it, and let's start with the very first stray perk. Now these are the options we're going to have for the first stray perk. We have Recycle Energy, Subsistence, Grave Robber, Pugilist, To the Pain, Moving Target, and also Overflow. And the best ones in this slot I think are going to be just things that let us use the weapon a lot more often. So the main two that I'm going to be going for are going to be Overflow or Subsistence. Subsistence is going to put some rounds into the magazine every time that we get a kill, meaning that we just don't have to reload as often as long as we're constantly getting kills with this weapon. And this one's pretty good. This is actually the main perk that I've been rocking on the rolls that I've been using. And it's actually the one that you're going to be seeing in the background, I think, if I'm using the gameplay that I think I'm going to be using, or it could be a different one. But Subsistence is going to be really good, and it just means that you don't really have to reload this weapon as often. Now Overflow is going to do something similar, but it's just not going to be as consistent. Whenever you pick up some special or heavy, it automatically reloads your magazine and overflows it to 200% of its original size. So if this thing has like a 43 round magazine, then you'll immediately get an 86 round magazine whenever you pick up special or heavy. Now this can be really useful, or it can be something that's not proccing a lot. It kind of just depends on the game mode that you're doing and if there's a lot of ammo on the ground. That's pretty much what it depends on. So there's times where you can shoot this thing for hundreds of bullets without having to reload it, and then sometimes it just doesn't proc and you have to just play with it normally. But as long as you're not playing an activity with famine, which is pretty much where that second situation happens, then this thing should be proccing quite often. One thing that you do gotta keep in mind though is that Overflow does not proc if you cannot actually pick up the ammo. So if you have like full heavy or full special, it just won't do anything. So you gotta make sure that you always have some room to pick up that special or the ammo you want to use it to like load your weapon. Now I think Overflow kind of works the best when you're not just using this weapon, when you're using this and your special both together quite a lot. I think that's when Overflow really shines, and every time you switch to this weapon, you're essentially going to have a reloaded and overflowed magazine. You can use the whole thing, then switch over to your special, get some kills with that, and by the time you switch to your weapon, you're probably going to have it overflowed and reload, ready to go again. So if you're also at clean with your special weapon or you're using it a lot, I think that's really where Overflow works the best. But if you want to use main this SMG and have it out all the time, I think that's when Subsistence works the best. And those are going to be the best perks that I think you can actually get on this slot right here. Now moving on to the second perk, these are the options that we have. We have Hatchling, Target Lock, Swashbuckler, Sword Logic, Permeability, Offhand Strike, and lastly Unrelenting. So let's start this off with Hatchling. I think Hatchling works really well if you're on the Strand build, or also if you're just using the weapon this season. The Strand mods are super strong this season, and some of them already make Hatchlings. So if you add Hatchlings on top of it with the weapon, then you're going to be getting even more out of the mods. One of the mods actually makes it so you're hatchlings on rival targets, so that works really well with this. So if you're using this with a strand build, or just using it this season, I think hatchling is going to be a fantastic perk that's going to be really good on this weapon. Another good one is going to be target lock. Damage increases the longer you hold the weapon on target. And this one is going to be really good, specifically with overflow. Since it overflows your magazine to 200%, it means that you can actually take full advantage of target lock. Usually you can only use it for a couple of seconds before you run out of ammo, but by doubling your magazine size, then you can really take advantage of this, and it'll be really good against some of the bigger targets. Usually everything's gotta be dead before target lock really gets going, except some of those bigger targets. Another really good one is gonna be sword logic. This is gonna be a damage increase that kinda depends on the type of enemy you kill. The higher level enemy you kill, the higher damage increase that you can get, and after you get the initial damage increase, then any follow-up kills will essentially keep it up. So if you actually end up killing like a yellow bar with this weapon, that yellow bar buff will continue to just keep being extended as long as you keep getting kills with the weapon. It is really good, and I think this is gonna be like your go-to perk if you're just looking for a straight up damage perk. What I also really like about sword logic is just how long the perk actually lasts. It has to be like the longest lasting damage increasing perk that we currently have in the game. It is really good, and it's something you can keep up for a lot of time. The only time that it's probably gonna run out is when there's no more enemies around. And originally I was just gonna talk about those 3 perks, but I think we have to at least mention permeability. Now permeability is not really a perk that we see too often on weapons, but surprisingly it is actually on this weapon, meaning that every time they use their class ability, this weapon's damage type will match your equipped super. So if let's say you're using this weapon on a void super, after you use your class ability, it'll turn into a void weapon. So now while that's definitely niche, that is something that you can definitely do with this weapon. See, when you just go full in on a certain element, like solar or arc, you could do that with this weapon. Especially because how easy it is to actually prop permeability. All it takes is your class ability, and that's usually something that we spam quite a lot in PvE. So that's definitely one that you want to keep in mind, that while most of you guys, I would say probably 99% of you guys, will never use permeability, it is something that I think some people are definitely gonna like. But for everybody else, sword logic, target lock, or hatchling are gonna be the best perks that you can get on this weapon. And now let's actually move on and let's take a look at some god rolls that you should be going for on this weapon. And for the god rolls, we're pretty much gonna divide them into subsistence god rolls and overflow god rolls, since that's probably what you're gonna go for. So starting off with subsistence, I think hatchling works the best. Subsistence hatchling is what I ended up enjoying the most. But I think subsistence sword logic also works pretty well, especially since you don't really have to reload the weapon as often. It takes less shots to actually kill enemies because sword logic means that you can keep going with this weapon for a ridiculous amount of time, just never having to reload, since every time that you get a kill, you get that damage extended, and you also get more rounds into your magazine. Now for overflow, I think hatchling and sword logic are also going to work pretty well. Maybe sword logic not as much as it does on subsistence, but I think with hatchling it's gonna be about the same. But the perk that you can run with overflow that definitely works a lot better with it is gonna be target lock. Target lock overflow, I think is gonna be like the best one if you're just trying to make the most out of target lock. Since you can really take advantage of target lock, and it lets us kill some of those bigger enemies that usually give the SMGs trouble. So I actually think overflow is one of the best perks that you can get on this weapon, and it can make the most out of every single one of these like good perks that it can combine with. It's just gonna be really good, but whether you get overflow or subsistence, they are both fantastic perks. You cannot go wrong with either of them. But those are gonna be the god rolls that I recommend that you guys go for, and the ones that interest me the most. But let me know in the comments below what is the god roll that you're gonna be going for, and also if you want to tell me a couple of the rolls that you got in, or maybe if you thought that maybe I should have mentioned a perk that I didn't, also leave me that in the comments below. And maybe just your overall thoughts on the weapon. I always like seeing what people think about the weapons, so let me know that. And now let's talk a little bit about the weapon and my experience with the weapon this last couple of days that I've been playing with it. Now I really like the submachine gun because a higher RPM submachine gun, I just tend to like those a little bit better in like PvE, and also those seem to be like the ones that get the most play in PvE. And up until this point, we didn't really have a 900 SMG that was also a strand machine gun. We had a couple of 750s, but they were also from like some of the harder activities like the raid or trials, and since not everyone gets into either of those, the only real like strand machine gun you could get was the one from Neo Muna, and that was like a 600. So I think this one's gonna be the most popular one now, especially for PvE, because it has some fantastic perks, it feels amazing, and it also has a depth version, meaning that you can get some of the sub-depth mods and make this weapon even better. And I've been loving this weapon. It could be also because of the strand mods this season, just making any strand weapon just stronger. But this thing is amazing. Feels so good, and with all the unraveling you're doing with the mods, it is an amazing primary weapon, and I cannot put this down every time I go on a strand build. It is just a really good weapon, and it has quickly become one of my favorite like legendary strong weapons to use. If I'm not using the Barrel Diet, this is probably the SMG that I'm going to be using. It's crazy how much better a weapon can feel because of a higher RPM in PvE, but I think that's really what's going to make this weapon be good. This is definitely one of my favorites from the active weapons, and it's one that I'm going to be using a lot. Especially with the roll that I got lately, it's really hard to put it on. So I definitely really like it. I definitely recommend that you guys give it a try. I think you'll like it as well. But with that, we're going to end today's video. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. Leave a like if you did. There's like if you didn't. Subscribe to the channel in case you guys are not already. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care everyone. Have a good rest of your day. Peace.